And we're live, I think. Hello, Doom Scrollers. Hello there. I tried scheduling it for a little bit in the future so that folks would have a heads up, but it seems not to have made much of a difference, and that's okay. Who is here? Kay. Hello, Kay. I don't know if you've... And Tom. Hello, Kay, and hello, Tom. I'm busy... Well, I'm going to wait a minute and see if anyone else wants to pop in and listen to me rambling. How is everyone? How are you, Kay? How are you, Tom? How are we, folks? How are we really? What a weird old time, huh? What a weird old time. Just to put some... Staying warm. Is it cold up? I'm assuming where you are, Tom. I haven't provided any context for why I pop on to Substack and do live videos at all. And it's not just because I'm enamored of the sound of my own voice, or because I think that mine is the face or the personality that most needs to be seen on a camera. It's because of this little exercise that I do, and I give it to myself at least once a year, and I give it to friends and clients and viewers and people who get meaning out of these things. And really, it's called finding voice. It's called finding voice, and it's part of something. And finding voice is, in the archetypal sense, to find voice. A voice is our way of speaking into the world, and not just our way of speaking to the world. It's our way of speaking a kind of our truth into the world. And finding voice, I often say authenticity is something that needs to be practiced. And it sounds paradoxical, because if you're just your authentic self, why would you need to practice anything? Well, it's because we have so many layers of conditioning and preparation that life assumedly sets us up with, so that we can navigate life and navigate the world and get our needs met. But if we get to a certain stage in our life, and some of us reach that quite early, and some of us reach that only late. Some of us reach that insight only after some form of calamity or some certainty in the world begins to unravel or collapse, or we go through some level of shock, that we realize that this toolkit, this predictive model, this normative way of seeing the world and relating to the world and expecting how things will behave, the social contracts that we're expecting, what we think it means to be a good person, what we think love means. We have so many unchallenged ideas inside of us that we inherited as younger people, when we didn't have the wherewithal, we didn't have the boundaries or the discernment, and we were forced sometimes by our families and our schooling to take these beliefs and these understandings and these rules and these social contracts. We were forced to take them on in order to get our needs met. Just think for a moment what it would have meant as a child for you, Kay and Tom, when you were a young child. What did an apology from you need to look like to bring you back into the social fold? So therefore, what did forgiveness look like? What were you expected to accept as an apology when something was done to you, when some sense of you or yours was violated? when something was taken away, how did that reparation process look like? Were you even honored with that kind of consideration? And there's things that we experience in our families. So we get a family imprint on this operating system, and then we get social and cultural imprints, and then we get ones from our pop culture, and we get ones from school, and then we get ones from our university years. Hey, Joe, we're talking about how human beings have to wake up out of inherited forms of what we call normal or forms of conditioning. And we're not, I don't know who's giving me those love hearts. I don't know who's loving what. Maybe you can tell me in the chat. And yeah, just one of the invitations of this chat, if it's not obvious already, is to slow right down and become really present. Because if we don't reset our state of presence, right, we don't really make the most contact we can in a moment. And what are we going to do with the rest of our day? Carry on doom scrolling, or carry on worrying about what's in the world and in the news, or carry on doing whatever it is we were doing? We're sharing this moment now for, let's call it 25 minutes, 30 minutes. It behooves us to be really present and really connected with ourselves, with the moment, with what's being said. So I'm curious who was relating to what in that. And one of the things I brought up was why I'm doing these videos, and it's for an exercise, a practice I called finding voice, and I'm talking about voice in the archetypal sense, which means our truth, our forms of expression, our way of staking our claim on what's happening, on who we are, speaking up for ourselves in our own voice, speaking up for what we care about in our own voice, voting for things that are happening around us in our own voice. And it doesn't always only mean using the voice box and your mouth to say something. Your writing voice is your voice. Yeah. The way that you show up, the stance that you hold in the world, in your family, in relationships, all of this is part of the archetypal consideration of finding voice with a capital F and a capital V. So a big letter F and big letter V. And why is it that as adults we should have to find voice? Why is it that I say authenticity has to be practiced? Because authenticity is an uncovering of who we are. It's a discovery, and there's no map for that discovery. The problem with the world is they give us maps, and they say, here is the religious map, here is the Stoicism map, here is the academic map, if you follow this map, some people only think they find themselves in the context of becoming a parent or in a relationship, or and they need that map and that container to help them define who they are and help them recognize who they are. But even as a parent, even in a relationship, when you're in a new relationship, everything is new. And the way that your Lego block fits with their Lego block, and how that alignment works and how that compatibility works, we still have to discover who we are in the context of that relationship. Tom says, I was a bit of a solitary kid. I spent my time in nature, and maybe that was my escape from cultural conditioning. Yeah, and it's probably explains a lot about why you're so sensitive to certain things, why you're so sane in your perspectives. Yeah, it's because it was the same as Da Vinci. We all praise and laud his ability to think the way he did, and to discover what he did, and to articulate what he did. But we rarely recognize that for him to find his voice, he had to remove himself. In his case, it wasn't deliberately either. He didn't have the chance of what was then a formal education. And by the standards of that day, a formal education was very narrow, actually. And what education can do is it narrows the thinking, narrows the language, narrows the conversation that we have with environment and with nature and with the unfolding of reality. And he went out into the woods and he observed the way water flowed over rocks, and the way spiders built webs, and the way birds built their nest, and the way they moved and came back, and the flight of them in the sky, and the way that butterflies and moths move differently to birds. And all of that observation, right, opened up a a conversation in him and drew him deeper into the conversation of life, right? Through which he was able to find his authentic voice in one sense, and how broad and how multifaceted that voice was, because he was, of course, an inventor, a writer, a painter. He was an engineer and an architect, and he was interested in anatomy and so many other things. And this is why I say authenticity has to be practiced, because, often even doing this exercise, so I'll give this finding voice thing, this practice, this modality to people. And this is fundamentally what it is. Go on any platform of your choice for 20 days. 20 days. It doesn't matter who shows up. It doesn't matter what platform it is. It's not about anyone else. It's just about you speaking into the camera for 20 days for 10 to 20 minutes at a time. Say it all wrong. Fumble your words. Feel uncomfortable. And then watch the video daily afterwards to look at yourself, observe yourself, witness yourself, so that you can develop the comfort of being seen. Yeah. So that you can recognize when you speak. And this is the same for your writing. Hey, Zoe, it's the same for your writing. We're talking about why I'm doing these videos. It's part of a program I nominate people to do called Finding Voice in an archetypal sense. You go online 20 days in a row and you spend 10 to 20 minutes either writing a thought stream or speaking your thought stream. And I promise you, you're going to fudge it, and you're going to feel silly, and you're going to feel inauthentic, and you're going to try and reach and borrow for ideas and language and stances. When I started speaking, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was borrowing the voices of people who had imprinted their way on me, or who had modeled some kind of image or visage of this person has a voice. They speak. I must speak a bit like them. This is what speaking and using voice sounds like. And then when I started doing poetry and writing and all the rest of it, I borrowed the voice of David Whyte, but I did it consciously. And I apprenticed myself to his work. It didn't mean I was trying to become David Whyte. I was apprenticing myself to the mastery, the mastership of somebody else who had been working on their craft for decades, right? And who I was inspired by, hugely inspired by. And now I'm inspired by Wynton Marsalis. So I speak differently, and I'm trying to speak differently, and I'm just practicing. And it's not that I'm trying to emulate those people or copy them. It's that I'm testing out these instruments and these stances and these cadences and these ways of being in the world. There's a bit of Shakespeare that comes through. There's a bit of Tolkien that comes through. There's a bit of me that comes through. There's a bit of Walt Whitman. There's a bit of Thoreau and Emerson and Albert Camus. And when I write poetry, there's a lot of Khalil Gibran that comes through. And it doesn't mean I'm inauthentic because I'm a patchwork of all these things. We are all a patchwork of everything. And I'd much rather be aware of what I feel authentically a patchwork of. And it's the things that inspire me most. Because that which inspires me most defines me most. And that which inspires you most defines you most. That's the archetypal concept of desire. That which you find most beautiful tells you what you authentically are. And it's in the bumbling expression. It's in the saying the wrong thing in the wrong way. And then when you watch it afterwards, sometimes as you speak, you hear yourself saying something and you cringe inside because it's that cringe is a guidance signal to say, oh, that's not authentically me. Cringe. Don't collapse into shame or embarrassment or guilt. It's just a signal to say, okay, that's not authentically me. Okay. And then you can literally say in the live stream, you know what? I didn't mean to say that. Man, here's this thing that I'm working on, ladies and gentlemen, whoever's listening. I'm working on finding voice. I'm working on finding my authentic form of expression. Some people that come to me are beginning this exercise at age 60. There's no right time, right? And it's never too late. And then you just explain to say, I'm working on my authenticity. I teach this to my clients in relationships. Say it wrong. And then listen to how it sounds while you're saying it, and then go, actually, well, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean it. Those words are all coming out wrong and it's not landing right. I'd like a redo. People don't think less of you. They think, oh my God, what is this? This person is editing their becoming, their product managing who they are becoming real time. And the beautiful thing is the thing that you're becoming is always more authentic, because mistakes are how we learn. Mistakes are how we learn. Zoe says, embracing the cringe as data is one of the most important life skills. It is the most important life skill. You have to be a little bit cringe, because somewhere between your comfort with that cringe and the too much that came out is a titration, a refinement exercise, so that you can be guided closer to what feels okay with you, and you can become more okay with accepting the fact that you sound or show up or have a stance or something to say that is not what everyone else expects, huh? And Jacob says, Whitman, Thoreau, Gibran, Emerson, nice. Yes, these are the people that inspire me. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we're talking about is I'm trying to explain why I come online and I prattle into the camera. And I promise you, it's not because I'm enamored of my own voice. It's because I'm trying to become enamored of my own true voice. And it's not because I think mine is the face that needs to be seen on camera. I want to be comfortable on a camera, because we have so much synthetic connection and so much digital distance and layers of confusion and obfuscation and distortion between ourselves. If we ever mean to broker that, yes, we can be in person. And if we are lucky enough to build communities in person, we can do that. But many of us are not. And I know I'm not. And this virtual world is something we have now. It's a miracle in the way that it can connect us. And I'm not saying it's a substitute for intimate physical connection. I'm asking how good can this virtual connection be? And if we mean for this virtual connection to ever work, we can't rely on fucking algorithms to share other human beings. And we can't expect a machine to do the job of human connection. Humans have to do the job of human connection. Humans have to go, this is an idea I like, I want to share it. But in order for us to invest our energy and attention wisely, we need to be saying things that we fucking mean from a place that we mean it to people that we think will resonate with it. Be damned all the rest. And that profound level of self-permission that you need to arrive at, right? It means breaking a lot of rules. It means going your own way in many ways. And the only way to do that is finding comfort in who you are and discovering who you are profoundly at the bottom of everything that life has tried to make you out to be. And that is why authenticity and becoming and actualization is so little about what you can accrue on top of you. The only thing you need to accrue is appreciation, right? It's more about cutting away and removing that which is not essentially you. And so authenticity has to be practiced, because you have to become this thing, and you have to walk away from what you're not, and you have to cut away what you're not. And you don't have a map for this. No one tells you how to do it. And all the people that are telling you how to do it are confused, because they have homogeneous maps. This is the Christian map. This is the Muslim map. This is the Stoic map. You do this, do these things. And if you do these things, then you will be right with God, or then you will be live in harmony, or then you will live a virtuous life. Fuck that noise. There's beauty in all of those systems, but none of them make room for the power and the meaning and the necessity of you and your voice. So we've got Zoe came, Jacob, Zoe, Jacob, Bridget, Jacob, yes. Jacob was saying yes to something. I hope to all of it, Jacob. Jacob says, dissolution of the performative masks that you are conditioned to maintain. Yeah, and so this is what I'm doing, and I've just gotten better and better at it. And it's a tricky one, this finding voice exercise. I recommend it to all of you. This is the format. You make a commitment to yourself. You stare into that fucking mirror and you don't blink and you don't look away. You start a process that you commit to that you're not going to stop. That doesn't mean you can't skip a day. It's fine, skip a day. Something might happen. Might not be a good day. You might have a bad internet connection. But for 20 days, go switch your camera on. It doesn't matter how bad the camera is and how bad the audio is. Just make it audible and don't bob around too much, right? And speak your thought stream. Even if your thought stream is about the fact that you're not used to speaking your thought stream, how inauthentic it feels to do it, how complicated or how difficult it feels. Eventually, after a few days, you're going to develop a comfort with it. You're gonna activate the stabilizer muscles of your psyche and your limbic nervous system that's going to support you in this, and you're actually going to find your voice changing. And then you watch that video at the end of every day. You'll notice people will show up and they will be kind. The more vulnerable you are and the more honest you are, people are just kind. And the people who are not, fuck them, right? Just you. Because if not now, when, right? When are you going to find your voice? You think you're going to keep writing into this fucking void of Substack forever that somebody one by one, some machine is going to now send people your way so they can finally recognize your voice? Shit or get off the pot, right? You want to use your voice. You're here because you want to say something. You're here because you want to say something. That doesn't mean you want to take the microphone and tell everybody something, but it means you want to stand in your corner of the world and hold space for something that you care about, a thought, an idea, a thought stream, a craft, a craft of telling stories, a craft of writing. Sometimes it's really just so you can get better at that because it brings you joy. Say that. 20 minutes a day, 10 to 20 minutes a day, doesn't have to be that long, 20 days in a row. Watch each single video. Just watch it. Look into that mirror. Start loving the person in there that is struggling for air and struggling for comfort, and hold space for that one. Because there is some poor little version in you that all of the inherited voices of judgment and thou shalts and say-sos and all of the, I don't want to be too loud and I don't want to be a tall poppy and I don't want to act as if I'm looking for attention. No one cares. No one cares. People think what they think anyway, right? But at some point in time, in an archetypal sense, you only ever really become you, and you only ever become deeply, profoundly connected with life when you find your voice. Yeah. And you have comfort being seen as who you are. Right. And for me today, I hope that point landed. If anybody wants to do that and needs pointers, come speak to me. I'll tell you how to do it. And maybe tomorrow I'll talk more deeply about this. But I think I'm on day 11 or 12 now, right? This is what I've been doing. Yes, I have a kind of agenda in my work that I'm trying to trickle in here. Yes, I've got things that I like teaching people or sharing with people that I think is medicine for the moment or technology for the moment, or my idea of wisdom or experience or insight. C'est la vie. That's happening too, right? That's the packets that are being delivered on this carrier signal. But the why I've suddenly decided to pop on the camera again after a year is because this is what I did last year. And you can do it too. Tom says the most common voice we have in our heads is I'm not good enough. It's not the most common voice in my head. I've got another problem, Tom, but yeah, for many of us, that is the most common voice. There's certain people like me who are just unlucky in this life to be born with a different voice in their head that says, not only am I not good enough, I'm excellent at something. But my trouble is getting that excellence understood and articulated and making it sound coherent and tempering my energy, this instrument that I am, so that I can read the room and regulate that flow so that I can have that gift of me understood. And my annoyance my whole life as a highly neurodivergent, polymath, autodidact, all those things, is I had a form of arrogance in me where I believed I understood things differently, and I believed I understood them in a better way that mattered more for the things that we all claim to care about most. and I couldn't make myself understood. So it was important for me, especially if I realized eventually through my own very troubled forms of awakening and inner work, etc. Uh, anger is not a place to do that from. Um, Gracelessness is not a place to do that from. I had to make sure that I was coming from love. These things that I claim to care about, is it from love or is it from fear or is it from hubris, right? And so often, when I find people troubled with that same project or that same reality as I was, they appear as if they're arrogant or too strident or too forceful or whatever the case. But in fact, their desire to speak is not about them. They're not trying to soapbox themselves just to soapbox themselves. They're trying to soapbox themselves because they feel they have some profound gift that is trying to live through them, some profound insight that the world deserves or needs right now. And I had this experience in corporate for 27 years. I've been involved in projects and in teams and in development of products. And the leadership and the management will claim to want something, some good thing. And then everyone loves the vision. And you all get on board. And then you start trying to execute that vision. And then they make it hard. Or they fuck with people. Or they do dumb shit. Or they make terrible judgment calls. Or they mess with people's psychology and their mental health. And they take people for granted. And then you start stepping up and saying, hey, if you really want the tool to do this or the team to do that, this is not the way to go about doing it. Who are you? Who are you to say something? A discerning, reasoning adult with an opinion? You weren't allowed to have that in those days. And the only way that that style of leadership can interpret somebody who's trying to use their voice, even for the right reasons, is arrogance. Yeah. Jacob says, finding your voice is a beautiful and necessary process, and you're definitely deep in that process, Rocco. Well, I jolly well hope so after all these years of trying. Brett just joined. Yeah, Brett, you may have joined towards the end of this conversation, and it's probably a worthwhile listen if you are connected with the project of finding your own voice and saying something of meaning out into the world and developing your own authentic self in that, because that's what we've been talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, I think part of my finding voice is to regulate myself a little bit better, because I speak okay, and I think I'm saying what I mean to say, but I'm not always reading the room, and I think I sometimes get a bit carried away and I blather on too long. I catch fire, as they say, and not everything needs to be an hour-long sermon. I share that neurodivergent struggle, says Zoe. Spherical, non-linear cognition to voice is like compressing speaking the galaxy through a straw. I wonder if everyone can resonate with what Zoe is trying to say here. Zoe says, I share that neurodivergent struggle that you're talking about. There's this spherical, non-linear cognition to voice is like compressing speaking the context of an entire galaxy through the confinement of a straw. Writing is easier for me, Zoe says. I work every day on verbal fluency. You've inspired me for a few years. I've inspired you for a few years? You've inspired me for a few years towards finally sharing my gifts. Insight with the world. Thank you for that. And Tom says, you're in the flow. That's it. Tom's hit the nail on the head. Zoe, thank you for your vulnerability. Yes, that lights us all up. Vulnerability is a beautiful thing. And it's kind of like this final gift that you give to yourself to get yourself across every threshold of meaning that you ever want to cross. Vulnerability. And Tom has hit the nail on the head. Tom says you're in flow. Flow, ladies and gentlemen. What is flow? Flow is the natural state of being when you are unencumbered by ego. The reason that the world isn't gelling and jamming and flowing is because there's too much ego. We are egocentric, not ecocentric, right? Flow means to be in a resonance with the moment, the unfolding moment, a resonance with the authenticity and imperfection of who you are, and the the harmony of exchange that can happen between there, which is the definition of beauty, right? Is that harmony. And if you look at a virtuoso uh, violinist or a jazz player or somebody speaking in flow or painting in flow, Bob Ross, that painter, would say, oh, it's a happy accident. Nothing that happened on that easel or on that canvas was cause for alarm. Yes, mistakes happen, but the mistakes and the occurrences and the things that happen inform what's going to come next. When I'm in flow and I say the wrong word or somebody says something or misunderstands me, you just go with that. It's when you're holding a vision of perfection, which is always fucking stupid and childish, when you're holding some vision of perfection that you have to be or you have to say or you have to demonstrate or you have to whatever, and then you're watching yourself instead of just being in the moment. You're watching yourself, which is a skill. It is a skill. You have to kind of be aware. You have to have a kind of producer in the room that doesn't get in the way, that's just there, that can just prompt you gently in your ear or something like that. And it gets more and more subtle over time. But you watch yourself, and when you hear yourself say something wrong, or you look at yourself on camera, or you suddenly start thinking, oh my God, I wonder how people think and as soon as you get in your fucking head, you break your flow, because there's another egotistic little actor in you, the one that wants to like put on a show for everybody, right? That immediately tries to dance to like 1,000 tunes and tries to hold the expectation of the crowd. You cannot hold the expectation of the crowd, right? You cannot fit it all in. You cannot fit it all in. And so flow is not when everything is perfect. Flow is when you have enormous amount of peace and acceptance and surrender to what you would have considered perfect. And everything just is, and everything just comes up the way it does. So thank you for that, Tom, my man. Jacob says, I get what Zoe is saying a bit. When you have to spontaneously compress your entire huge lived inner life into a single thought stream spontaneously, and now it's hard. You know, this is going to sound so fucking weird for so many people, but it's not a lot of people are going to resonate with this, is that in some sense, I know exactly what's going on in the world right now. I don't know the answer to everything. I'm not claiming to, but I have a vantage point, a perspective, an internal committee of dialectic by which I can interpret everything through elevated predictive models, through universal predictive models, through hermetic predictive models, through archetypal predictive models. And in that, I can understand so much. But to try and bring everyone into the conversation, it's such a large conversation. And there's no mutual initiation that everybody has into the nuance or the perspective or the language or the turning of the archetypal jewel or the crystalline structure of meaning to be able to articulate that entire constellation of context through a medium in a compressed moment of time where you're trying to reach somebody perfectly and expose them to that enormous geometry of dimension, right? Through the fulcrum of this little conversation into the limited space that they have, the limited resonance that they have to receive all of that. And every conversation is like that geometry. It's like two lines that are drawn that intersect diagonally. And the intersection is that fulcrum, that tightness of the moment, the exchange, the conversation, the now. And you're trying to parse that full depth of view through that neck into a range in them that they haven't deepened yet. Yeah. Emily joined. Emlyn joined. Jacob, my man, what does SRL mean? Because I'm not down with the kids. Mary Jane just joined. Folks, I'm loving all the folks joining, and I'm kind of just hitting my flow now, but I also feel like this is going on too long. And so I'm encouraging you, type, oh, okay, cool, cool. It could have been something cool like FML, or in my humble opinion, I don't understand. No, please don't say pardon. It's again, this is what happens in that fulcrum, right? There's a lot of misunderstanding. And then we fill that misunderstanding with apologies and politeness and social dances and all the rest of it. And we waste so much energy and attention. We don't have time to waste, ladies and gentlemen. Time is not ours to spend. It's not ours to waste. It's not ours to invest. Time just goes. It compresses and expands in proportion to our courage and our attention and our presence and our awareness and our grace. But what we have are two budgets in every moment, a budget of energy and a budget of attention. And that is what we get to invest in every single moment. And I wish to God that we could get to a point in humanity, a waterline of maturity above which everybody in that circle of having themselves and not needing these onerous protocols of nicety and politeness could just speak frankly. Some of the people that you think are the rudest in the world are just people who are neurodivergent, and they don't have that inclination to moderate socially to everyone else because they think something else is more relevant and more important, and they see those social dances and that politeness and that piety as redundant or a massive waste of energy and attention, like farcical almost. And it doesn't mean we don't have to be kind to each other. We don't have to be compassionate or considerate. It doesn't mean that the trumpet player can just come over the top of every single session in a jazz quartet and dominate the stage. It's not that. It means if they blurt a note out, the rest of the ensemble finds a way of working that into it, or letting them know through the jazz. I don't really like jazz, but I understand the genius of it. Yeah. I appreciate the genius of it. And the rest of the ensemble let them know it was too loud, too soft. They respond in the conversation, in flow, right, to help that voice entrain to a kind of form of regulation that can be conducive to an emergent conversation that's happening. Rocco, you genuinely make me feel better, bro. To hear someone speak with authenticity and skill and care and moral seriousness is very beautiful. Yeah, it took a long time to get here, so thank you for noticing. And what I'm encouraging all of you so strongly is to invest in this project that I'm busy with that you didn't know that I was doing the whole time, which is finding voice. Finding voice so that your multivalent complexity can be carried with skill on a single carrier signal of an expression, of a poem, of a moment, even of a silence, of a line that you write. And you'll find your voice will become more authentic, more serious, less performative. There is a beautiful poem that I wrote called Stop the Show, and I'll leave you with this and then I'll sign out. The context of this is I was on a walking tour in Ireland for about 10 days. And the previous day, we had been on this very, very long 6-hour hike, very difficult through all this rugged limestone highlands where you had to watch your step every second of the walk, right? Taken through all of these, climbing over walls, watching out all these potholes in the limestone, all these ancient sites, these burial mounds, up and down cliffs. It was quite intense. And there's this Arctic wind that just buffets you constantly for 6 hours, right? It's beautiful, and it was a kind of initiation into the land. And the next day, this whole walking tour is hosted by David Whyte, which used to be one of my favorite poets, and probably still is. He's a contemporary poet and a philosopher as well. He's quite an incredible human being. And it's the person actually that taught me that you can be a great man and still not be a good man, right? And I've come to realize through my engagement with such people that it's not enough to be great. There's a lot of great people in this world, but there's so few of them that are good. It's not enough to be a great man. You have to be a good man. Anyway, we're all crowded into this cottage the next day, and we're getting a chance to speak and to share our thoughts. And so for many of us, David Whyte is like some kind of a hero figure, right? He's the man of the moment. He is just possessed of the most wonderful speaking voice, the wonderful turns of phrase. He's been doing this on a live circuit for 2 decades, right? He has had the most incredible life experiences, and he does this for a living, and he has books that have sold thousands and thousands and thousands of copies. And we all quietly want to be seen by him. And these people that came here all paid a significant amount of money to be here for these 10 days, right, in the company of David Whyte, which means if anyone in the world is going to be our peers, it's going to be these people, these 30 people, right? So in a sense, subconsciously, we're all trying to be seen and be heard by each other as well. Well, certainly I was, because I'm just honest about that. And I noticed that there's this performative one in me that is trying to say the right thing, and it's putting on a show, and you'll all recognize this, right? So we're listening to these two Irish musicians playing the uilleann pipes and the bouzouki, and playing this like riot of Irish music that's getting everybody all fired up, and there's a peat smoke fire, and everyone's full of the cheer and all the rest of it. And this is how it goes down. It says, in the tight living room, the cottage is crowded. Now you can think of all of these things, the living room and the cottage. Yeah. You can think of these things metaphorically and archetypally, because that's the invitation of this poem. In the tight living room, the cottage is crowded with stirred hearts and easy cheer, like the vibe we've got going on here. Everyone's in a good space, you know. The demanding hike through the gauntlet of gale and limestone traps well behind you. Its blessing on you like windburn on your face, and its troubles belonging to yesterday. Its troubles belonging to yesterday, the place all your troubles go, and wait patiently for you to return. In the tight living room, the cottage is crowded with stirred hearts and easy cheer. The demanding hike through the gauntlet of gale and limestone traps well behind you now. Its blessing on you like windburn on your face, and its troubles belonging to yesterday. All its troubles belonging to yesterday, the place all your troubles go, and wait patiently for you to return. White rafters, heels thumping on the wooden floor, and the uilleann pipes working the bellows of your Irish kundalini to a holy fire, touching the hem of reckless mirth. Here at last your soul is caught off guard. Here at last your soul is caught off guard as the dancer in you comes alive. Because we all feel more alive when this flow is happening. We do. We feel more alive from it. And the world will be richer when you find your flow, and when you find your voice, and when you find your jam, and when you can jam with other people. Yeah, in the audience or on the stage. Here at last your soul is caught off guard as the dancer in you comes alive. Before the shadow of your public self becomes aware. You can hear it. You can hear it. Before the shadow of your public self becomes aware, you can hear it rehearsing its lines in preparation to flood back onto the stage. When you watch yourself doing this finding voice practice that I'm recommending, going on a camera for 20 days on some social media platform and speaking for 10 and 20 minutes, you will catch yourself watching yourself, right? And you will notice this little performer in you. Here at last your soul is caught off guard as the dancer in you comes alive. Dancers are about flow and in connection with the moment. Before the shadow of your public self becomes aware, you can hear it, rehearsing its lines in preparation to flood back onto the stage with a mask of readiness to face the crowd. A mask of readiness. We are never ready, ladies and gentlemen. We are never ready. Right in the homely stillness, in the eye of the triumphant storm of wild music between Friars Green and Stormy Night, a voice speaks out. A voice speaks out again from the prompt box. From the prompt box of your soul, the deep voice that speaks to you, your deep voice of advice, your deep voice of caution, your deep voice of insistence. The one in you that says no when you're doing the wrong thing, the feeling in your body. Right in the homely stillness, in the eye of the triumphant storm of wild music between Friars Green and Stormy Night, a voice speaks out again from the prompt box. Soft and resonant with myth and power. A simple line that changes everything by leaving everything alone. A simple line that changes everything by leaving everything alone. Stop the show. Stop the show. 3 words. Stop the show. And then the soft tears come. Relief spilling over the levee of tight composure. How tightly we hold ourselves when we're trying to perform for a crowd that doesn't give a fuck. Right? We might as well be ourselves. 3 words, ladies and gentlemen, stop the show. And then the soft tears come. Relief spilling over the levee of tight composure, carrying a spring melt of secret prayers for meaning. For the refuge of acceptance, as the arms of grace descend around you, holding you. As the arms of grace descend around you, holding you as you wanted to be held all along. Assuring you with a familiar presence of remembering that the theatrics were always completely unnecessary. And that the audience and the critics and the talent scouts that you always believe are in the crowd and the talent scouts were never there for you. And then the soft tears come, relief spilling over the levee of tight composure, carrying a spring melt of secret prayers for meaning, for the refuge of acceptance, as the arms of grace descend around you, holding you as you wanted to be held all along, assuring you with familiar presence. That hand has always been at the small of your back, assuring you with familiar presence of remembering that the theatrics were always completely unnecessary, and that the audience and the critics and the talent scouts were never there for you, being instead all caught in the arresting light of their own drama, full of comedy and tragedy, and that the final act is no act at all. The final act is no act at all. I say that the performance that we're all working towards is not a performance at all. Is because when we're in our authenticity, the performance that we give to the audience is just the delivery of our authenticity and our craft and our devotion to that. Yeah. Being instead all caught in the arresting light of their own drama, full of comedy and tragedy, and that the final act is no act at all. And all your fumbled lines and unrequited effort. How many hours have you poured your soul out into Substack? You know what the word unrequited means at a soul level that the dictionary could never capture. And all your fumbled lines and unrequited effort as revealing and as essential to the plot as the score and the lighting you could never have chosen for yourself. This moment is actually in great service to you. Every single moment of discomfort is in great service to you. The music shares its truth. The music shares its truth with the ear of your understanding. You can surrender to harmony, even as you choose to allow your own defiance. And there's a story about why I'm talking about harmony and defiance. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope this touched folks and moved them. Yeah, I think I've gone on way longer than I wanted to. We're now closing on 50 minutes again. And I was so certain it was going to be a 20-minute exchange. But I'm highly advocating you give this a try and invite me in to watch and look and participate. And we can get a group going here where we can big each other up and give each other some tough love and some feedback and some support. Right? Because when you get feedback from people who are your well-wishers, here's the question. Why would you worry about taking criticism from people whose advice you would never seek? You wouldn't, right? So if you can get a group of well-wishers like I'm trying to draw in over here, and those well-wishers are giving you feedback that's uncomfortable, that you know that you need to roll in, right? Those are gifts. Those are gifts for you in this process of becoming more yourself. We can do that. There's nothing stopping us from doing that here, right on Substack. Jacob's shared a link. I'll have a look at this because it'll disappear, Jacob. And bid you all good day. I'm going to go and have a walk and a coffee and a breakfast because, ladies and gentlemen, for me, it is 10 minutes to 9 on Tuesday morning, the 10th of February. I'm speaking to you from the future. Ladies and gentlemen, have a lovely evening. Thank you for your participation and for being a container of well-wishers that can receive this form of Minecraft. Yeah. Au revoir, folks. Be kind to yourselves. Love each other. Well, good morning. God bless, Rocco. Love you. Thanks, man. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. Follow my work. Like my stuff.